Greetings and welcome back to the lab. It's time for Project Package Preview. Number 4 for 24, so 2404. A couple of things have arrived. They're both related to the same project. And this one just arrived today, so let's start with that. And this should be a revised 3D print. I'm just curious to see how it's all going to look once it's opened. Oh, wow, they really... Is this going to be another bag in a bag in a bag thing? Interesting. I guess they ran out of a smaller bag, so they had to go to the bigger one. Something like that. All right, give me a second. And there's the box from the same people. If the other guys want me to use them, they might consider a sponsorship. That wouldn't hurt. So let's see. This should be for the Redtronome project. It should be a white box for the case for what I'm working on. Gotta reach into the bag. And yep, it's also stuffed with more. Oh, I'm enjoying this 3D printing stuff. Let me get rid of the extra stuff around it. So yeah, what I ended up deciding was the old one just had 3 sides to it. This, interesting. Yeah, okay, that's not terribly strong as it is, but once I put everything in there, I think it'll strengthen up. The idea here is that there will be a plate on the top. Let me show you what the old one looks like, and then we'll talk about the other pieces, and you get an idea where we're going with this. So this is my mock-up from the first 3D print of this project, which name I'm not going to actually say. I haven't officially announced it yet, but you can see I've got a bottom piece, I got a back plane, and I got a top piece. These should all fit the new one. It should go something like, actually, no, I got to get this in the right order here. All right, I'm going to put that back. So my original thinking was that the back plane would hold everything together, but then I realized side to side there's nothing holding it together. With this one, I've got this piece on the bottom that's holding it together side to side. This piece on the top's a little bit weak, but I should be able to make that work. So now, if I put the bottom plate in, let's hope that fits. I changed it so it doesn't slot in. It should just fit in from the bottom, and there should be just enough support on all 4 sides. Ooh, a little bit loosey-goosey. There we go. Oh, there should be a stop on there. Yep. Oh, that's good. That worked. That's step 1 working. Then the back plane can go in. There's a couple of slots here. And let's see if I can get it lined up properly. It's a little bit of a tight fit, but that's kind of what I want because it's all going to hold itself together nicely. So now there are tabs and slots here. That should go in. All right. Maybe not. Maybe what I need to do is put this into the bottom piece first and then slide it up in there. That or I've done something wrong with my 3D print, in which case it's time to make a small revision and have it manufactured and sent out again. Ah, that didn't work too well. Alright folks, well, it doesn't exactly fit together. It might be that it could work. I didn't want to waste too much time trying to figure it out. I think what's happening is it has something to do with the sort of the tolerances here. I made them just a little bit too tight, and this top piece here which really should be beefier. So what I really need to do is redesign this back plane so you can see the labels properly. And I'll probably have to do it so that you don't see them printing the batch number on it. But if I pull it apart, I'm going to try and pull this apart, and I just want to see if the top is actually going to fit in, because it almost seems like the top is not fitting in properly. So let me take a look at that real quick, and I'll be right back. Alright, I got the bottom and the back plane out. I just want to see if the individual pieces actually fit as intended, because there could be a tolerance issue on one or more of them that's causing it to not all come together. And it actually kind of looks like the top is slightly bigger than I wanted it. Oop, we're in. I really got to do something about this, because this really, I think this would be far better if I had this and I had some vertical pieces on it. That would be a better design for this. If I try to put the back plane in the other way, it seems like it wants to go together, and it seemed like in the previous prototype, like it went together very nicely. You can see everything's kind of snapped together. The only problem is if I pull on that, it just comes right apart. That was the reason for the redesign. So let's prove that this should work. The back plane goes into the bottom piece. That snaps in nicely. And the top panel snaps into the back plane. And that is a reasonably nice sandwich. Whoops, it just popped out. I'm trying to prove that this works. Welcome to mechanical engineering, folks. This is really kind of what this is about. I mean, for you mechanical engineers, I apologize. It's much more than just this. But it looks like, it actually kind of looks like the back plane doesn't interface so well with the bottom piece. So I need to kind of allow for that in this design here. So there's a little bit of flexibility. Maybe I need to make the groove a little bit wider, something like that. But it does look like this basically holds together. And the idea was going to be that there are switches that are going to be sticking through all of these holes here, which we'll actually talk about in a second, and another switch up here. And that is going to create the clamping force from top to bottom. And then the case, I wanted to have all four sides for it. I'm kind of glad that this stuff is as flexible as it seems like it is, because I was a little worried about the first one. My very first print, I didn't want to have it break apart because I mishandled it. But this seems to be pretty tough stuff that I use. This is the 9000 resin, something like that. I'll put a thing up here so you have a little bit of detail on what I used when I had this printed. It was also like the cheapest material, just so that I could try my first 3D print, make sure that I'm on the right track without having to spend a ton of money on a 3D print that ended up not working, like this kind of didn't. So let me put all this aside, and we'll look at the other package. That brings us to this, and this should be related to that in the sense that I was trying to figure out with the switches to get switch caps. Let me pull out the top panel. Let me show you the switches and the top panel here, and maybe it'll make more sense. If I take a switch and I stick it through the top panel, and you have to use a little bit of imagination here. What I want the switch sticking through the panel, but I don't want the bat to be silver. I was trying to think in terms of what would look good as a design, and I said, okay, well, what if, well, actually I asked somebody who was a little bit more knowledgeable on design, And she said, yeah, like a white cap would make sense here because you got everything else in white and all of that. So I started looking at white caps, and it's like, you have to buy a 30-pack. I only need 8 of them. You have to buy a 30-pack, and it's like $12 for that. For some people, no sweat. $12, off and running. For me, I'm thinking, what is the most economical way to do each step of this? And doing multiple prints isn't necessarily the most economical way to do things, but you got to try something, and if it doesn't work, then you've got to try and fix it. So what I ended up realizing was, hey, wait a minute, I could get... All right, let's just rip her open. All right, well, okay, there's other stuff there. There we go. I got heat shrink tubing. This is an interesting way of doing it. They put it on a card and they taped it down. Now, these are all supposed to be, I think, 9-inch pieces, and there's 6 of them. So that's supposed to make 4 feet, something like that. But my thought was, if I've got the switch, let me get a switch out again. Shouldn't have put it away. If I get a switch and I have a little piece of this heat shrink tubing, I can put that on top, and if I cut them all exactly the same or as close to exactly the same as I can, and then shrink them on there, I've got my caps. And then on top of that, I mean, that'll take like one of these 6. Not even the whole thing, and I'll have more heat shrink tubing for other applications. So that seemed to me a reasonable bargain for a lot less than what I was looking at. So that's the plan. These are both part of this project, and we'll see what we can get going soon. I've got another project that I'm starting to design work on. I really want to just kind of do something that looks like the old console TVs that you'd see in the 60s and the 70s. I have some kind of fond memories of sitting in front of the TV, whereas nowadays you can see stuff on your phone and all the rest of that stuff, but it'd be kind of cool to do a miniature version of a television or a television console. But to build up to that, I'm doing a basic display kind of box, where it's going to have a whole bunch of LEDs behind it, and then it's going to have some diffusion material up near the bevel, so you can kind of, it's obscuring it a little bit, but it's going to look like a display. I'm hoping that makes some sense. We'll flesh out more of this in the future, but that was the idea that occurred to me, and I started working on design, and I've learned with designs, you start simple and you work your way up. If you try to do the ambitious design all at once, you're going to get yourself in trouble. You're going to have one issue or another. In fact, actually, this whole thing with the Metronome, I may have attacked it a little bit too much off the top. But we'll see if I can make this work. So, more projects in the works. Subscribe if you want to see more of this. Comment below if you have ideas to help me out. And if you want to support me, there are links to various ways of supporting me, because this material isn't all free. I've got to pay for it somehow. So, thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself.